granting and modifying, suspending, renewing, and withdrawing of activities. The consumer first needs to know his rights before he goes and addresses his grievances to the committee. IRDA is a body which tries to understand people from all perspectives, frame policies regularly to ensure that the industry operates without any ambiguity. Good morning and welcome to the first session in Unit 3, third semester Insurance Management in BCom, where we're going to talk about insurance regulation in India. Now, the Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority is one of the formidable agencies that controls the entire insurance companies, their procedures, their policies across the country. So what is the IRDA's most relevant work? Founded in the year 1999, it acts as an authoritative body regulating the insurance task force across the country. Now, we are quite new to the insurance world, as I've always been telling that India as a country started getting into the insurance business in the late 90s, and we started understanding how insurance can promote growth towards Indian economy. So by the year 2000, the IRDA is completely into a functional activity. They are headquartered in Hyderabad, and Mr. Ajay Seth, who has been appointed as the new chairman on July 2025, is currently heading the IRDA Association. Followed by which the authority is the apex body of insurance providers. It primarily oversees the functioning of general insurance and life insurance companies in India. So its main responsibility is to protect the interest of the policyholders and to regulate the insurance sector. Now, IRDA is a body which tries to understand people from all perspectives. There are multiple kinds of policyholders and there are many types of insurance plans which have been promoted in our country. The main reason here is that to see the policyholders at any point of time do not get disturbed, do not get cheated, or do not get carried away under the name of insurance. So IRDA primarily sees that any conflict of interest that arises because of the policy or the plans that have been proposed by the company, they have all rights to regulate, control, and take it over. Now, the most important thing where IRDA comes into it is, according to Section 4 of the Insurance Development Regulatory Act, we have a following structure, that is a 10-member institution consisting of a chairman, 5 full-time members, and 4 part-time members. So this is how the entire IRDA structure is being constituted. Besides which, the members of IRDA are appointment from the government of India. So now if you look into this entire structure, there is a part-time as well as a full-time, followed by which a chairman who heads the entire committee, which means we will have people from different walks of life who are also representing different companies, who are also part of the governmental agencies, who constitute this entire IRDAI structure so that the policyholders are always kept in the good books. Followed by which the main objective of IRDA is to enforce all the provisions as mentioned in the Insurance Act. The first and the foremost thing is to protect the interests of the policyholder, exercise their fair treatment, frame policies regularly to ensure that the industry operates without any ambiguity. So now the most important thing here is that you need to understand that every time whenever you're talking about an insurance policy, people have many kinds of doubt. There are things where people might not be happy with the premium. They do not understand the structure of the policy. They do not understand how the claims can be recovered, or they do not even know how the policy works. So in that context, the insurance companies should not go ahead and deviate the customers or confuse the customers. There might be any kind of issues, or there might be any kind of grievances, the policyholders can automatically go to IRDAI, raise the issue, get it clarified. So that's where whenever we talk about protecting the interest of the policyholder, the IRDAI maintains a very strict stand saying that at any point of time, the policyholder should be given a fair treatment and he should be in a position to exercise his rights. Third thing we are talking about is to regulate the insurance industry in fairness and ensure its financial soundness. As we have already mentioned that the insurance industry is a kind of backup. It needs to be financially secure, then only it will be able to address the claims and take care of the situation. So in certain situations, if the company itself is not financially secure, is not in a good position, or it might be in a verge of bankruptcy, the IRDAI swiftly acts and they bring back the company in position. They try to ensure that the money is not lost, the policyholders are not affected. To promote fairness, orderly and transparency among all the insurance sectors when they are dealing with the market through a management information system that is uniquely spread among the insurance sector, made available for everybody. Today, insurance has opened up its door to its policyholders as well as to the public, trying to address all their concerns, trying to come up as transparent as possible, telling them what are the features of the policies, what are the pros and cons that are involved in this sector. So the policyholder as well as the public can find out information at their will, and they would be able to understand when they are selecting a particular policy, what are the challenges, what are the benefits that they are going to derive out of it. The next thing is that to ensure a speedy settlement of genuine claims, prevent insurance fraud and other malpractices that needs to be avoided, the IRDAI is a very, very important promoter and a regulator there. Now, what happens is the insurance needs to come in handy at the time of emergency. So there are companies which take the claim, but they take their own time in terms of settling those claims. That should not happen. The policyholder should get back his claims on time. Similarly, there should not be any kind of fraudulent practices followed by the company that would deceive the policyholders, that would cheat the policyholders and leave them in lurch. So that is where IRDAI ensures that the governance and the standards of practice are in place and insurance companies follow an effective methodology in terms of delivering that particular policy to the people. The features of IRDAI: acts as a regulator of the insurance sector, protects the policyholders' interest, entrusted with Insurance Act to endorse the certificate of registration, new insurance companies in India. It also creates new rules under the section 114 of the Insurance Act 1938, supervising and regulating insurance industry to ensure a healthy environment is kept for the policyholders. So primarily the IRDAI is the oversee or the watchdog of the insurance sector. They try to see that as far as possible, the sector gets a complete holistic view, the policyholders are protected, and any new rules and regulations are always brought in picture to promote the sound functioning of the organization. Now, significant role, they play a very, very important role in terms of helping the policyholder while framing the policies. It's quintessential to know about that the important roles of IRDAI. So the first thing is protect the policyholder interest for the long-term funds to enhance the nation's economy and to increase the growth of insurance sector, which will benefit the policyholders. Now, when you compare India to the Western countries, insurance sector picked up very much earlier in those companies. Probably they are even 70 to 80 or even 100 years old when we are talking about insurance in the Western countries. Now, through the insurance sectors, they were able to wisely invest in long-term, short-term funds through which countries like America, or United Kingdom or Canada, Japan, Germany, all these countries were able to grow faster in terms of economic progress. But in India, we had only one insurance company known as the Life Insurance Corporation of India. Now, the primary aim of LIC was only to provide a backup in case of sudden death of the policy holder. So the family gets some amount so that their daily routine is not affected. So most of the time, people in India understood insurance only as a backup plan, but they never saw insurance as a sector that can promote financial soundness, an investment agency, and also a long-term growth engine for a country. Now, after 2000, that is when we are talking about 2025, 25 years ahead now, we are looking at the insurance sector as the most prominent sector through which investments are happening, both in terms of unit-linked plan, or we are getting in the sum assured plans. We are looking for pension plans, we are looking for emergency plans, we are looking for long-term plans for growth or for any kind of financial emergency. So the insurance sector has molded itself so well that it is able to cover all the needs and wants of the policy holders and provide them the best kind of policy that suits their needs and that suits to their requirements as we are talking about. Followed by which, to set, enforce, promote and monitor higher standards of fair dealing, financial soundness, integrity of the insurance providers, prohibit any fraud and malpractices so that you have a grievance redressal form, an optimum amount of self-regulation for the insurance industry. Now, when you look again in India as in the insurance sector, there has been a huge amount of emphasis towards the corporate governance. And this corporate governance started post-1992. When you look into sectors like information technology, banking, automobile, chemical, or any other manufacturing sector for that matter, we were able to quickly address the issues of governance, standards of practice, the operating procedures in a great length and detail. But when it came to insurance sector, being a very, very new sector, rather I would say a sunrise sector for India, we were not ready at the initial level to understand the governance practices, the ethical policies that needs to go here. So after IRDAI came up, the primary role was to set up a governance committee to understand how insurance companies should function so that they avoid any kind of deviations, avoid those fraudulent practices or any kind of confusion towards the policy holder. Now, most of the insurance companies are self-regulatory in nature, which means they need to know and they have well understood the do's and don'ts of the insurance business. Most importantly, whenever a policy holder comes back and starts with a complaint, or he comes up and says that I have not received this particular benefit, or I have not been informed about my new policy issuings or the holdings altogether, the IRDAI immediately sets up a grievance redressal committee, tries to say very clearly how it needs to be addressed, how the policy holder should be taken into confidence, and all his queries needs to be answered on time. Followed by which, we also look into the functions where we start talking about the modifying, suspending or cancelling registration, specifying the code of conduct, investigating and inspecting the insurers, levying fees and other charges, the terms and conditions that are offered by the insurance, including the tariff body and the factors. Now, for the IRDAI, every insurance company is a neutral figure, which means they don't get partial with government companies and they don't get negative with the private companies. Any company where they feel that they are not up to the mark, there have been deviations from the standard operating procedures, there have been fraudulent practices, mismanagement of funds, IRDAI has the rights of cancelling their license, suspending them from the action altogether. So the primary role of the association is to see that they regulate the funds, they regulate the operations of the company, and at any given point of time, the company should be ready to answer the queries that are raised by the regulators. So it's very important in the insurance business that you are able to take forward the insurance to the next level by looking into all the factors and promoting an equal and a healthy atmosphere for all the policy holders. Followed by which the margin of solvency, that's the regulation is needed on that, and on professional and all institution connected with insurance and reinsurance industry, the tariff advisory committee, the percentage of general life insurance business undertaken, granting and modifying, suspending, renewing and withdrawing of activities. Tariff is a very, very important and also a controversial word which I would like to say in terms of business. Now, whenever people propose the premium for you in terms of your policy, the question that comes in your mind is that why am I being charged so much? Now, thanks to the government that recently we got the GST abolished in terms of the insurance premiums. But nevertheless, the question that always comes to the mind of the consumers is that how am I being charged so much for the coverage that is being issued by the company? So if the company is going to increase the tariff in the coming financial years, or they are going to bring in a new cover or any other premium benefits for the customers, that means to say that there is a challenge in the mind of the policy holders to understand why this tariff and why are we being affected by this. To address this, the IRDAI very clearly says that any tariff that is being proposed by the insurance company has to go through the tariff advisory committee. You need to have a check on your premiums. You need to have a complete transparency in terms of pricing your policy. Only based on that, we will be able to promote it to the policy holders. Similarly, what percentage of life insurance, general insurance business, and in case of solvency, suppose the company is going to go bankrupt, then the IRDA comes forward and looks into this factor, how we can resolve the matter so that the policy holders are not affected. Followed by which, as we all know that the IRDA is responsible for regulating and managing the insurance sector, it generally looks after the life and non-life insurance domain. Now, we are also going to see the few types of insurance policies, primarily the term plans, the unit-linked insurance plans, the endowment, money back, retirement. In general insurance, we are again talking about health insurance, motor and vehicle, travel, home, gadgets, and property. So the insurance sector is divided into primarily life and general, that is a non-life which we can say. And there are so many policies which have been addressed, which have been bought up by the insurance company. So the IRDAI looks into each and every insurance policy, tries to address what are all the factors that we need to look into it, as in the minute, the micro details before passing it on to the policy holders. Now, the Consumer Protection Act, which is a very, very important thing that we start coming into the insurance sector. The Consumer Protection Act is a practice of safeguarding the goods and services against unfair practices. Now, this is very, very important. Why? Because in India, there have been several corrupt and unscrupulous malpractices that have gone ahead, through which the people have always got affected. So the protection of consumer is considered to be a very, very important thing. And this is administered by the Consumer Protection Act of 2019, which was actually introduced as a new version, updating from the year 1986. The new act has various provisions which are incorporated, the challenges faced by the modern and technology dependent consumers. The act also contains of various provisions through which you can address the issues and keep up to the rights of the customers. Now, the meaning of the word consumer, that's very important for all of us to know, which means to say an individual or group of individuals who purchase goods and services for their own personal purpose and not for the purpose of manufacturing and resale. Now, section 2 of 7 says that it clearly defines that a consumer is any person who buys the goods or services exchange of consideration of utility or services for his personal purpose, and that's not for a business ideology. In this way, we understand that if you are a consumer, you are going to buy any product for your personal consumption. So that might be a chocolate, that might be a biscuit, it might be a pen, it might be a laptop, which means to say that these goods are going to be consumed by you, and you have a belief that these goods are needed for my daily lifestyle. There is a purpose behind buying that particular product. So that's exactly where a consumer comes in. The word buy is primarily for the self-satisfying purpose. It is not for a business, it is not for a resale purpose at any point of time. Now, the next thing is that it was enacted by the Indian legislature to deal with the matters relating to violation of consumer rights, unfair trade practices, all those misleading advertisements and all factors. Now, the intention of the parliament to act behind this was to ensure that e-consumers were completely affected by seeing a falsified image or getting a different price or a different kind of product upon ordering it through online. So at any point of time, the consumer should not get affected by the product or the misleading advertisements or any kind of gadgets that are being promoted. Now, the Act seeks to provide a better protection and interest for the consumers by establishing a council to settle the disputes in any case and to provide an adequate compensation to the consumers in case of the rights that have been infringed. It further requires a speedy and effective disposal of consumer complaints through alternate dispute resolution mechanism. It can also provide a consumer education in order to educate the customer the rights responsibility by readdressing the issues. Now, in India, what happens is that we are completely carried away by whatever the television shows or the e-commerce advertisements that pop across your screen. So many times people are just carried away by the discount prices or by the offers or by all those kind of fancy titles that come across to your mind. The consumer does not know exactly under what basis the product is being promoted, what kind of offers that are being offered, what kind of EMI plans that are being linked, and how much interest are going to be charged. So all of a sudden, when you wake up and you start seeing that I'm being cheated by the company or I'm being put into a completely disadvantageous position because of the purchase, the consumer gets irritated, he gets angry, he wants to go back and pounce on the company. But then the company would have clearly told the consumer before itself that please read the terms and conditions before you sign up, which we often forget. So that is the reason the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 first wants to bring in awareness and education into the minds of the consumer. They want the consumer to understand what the product is, why that kind of service is being provided, what are the benefits, what are the terms and conditions, the clauses that you need to understand before opting for it. If you have not understood, get back to the agency, get back to the corresponding to the responsible team or to the person asking the doubt, how does it work altogether before you sign up for those things. So that's why the consumer first needs to know his rights before he goes and addresses his grievances to the committee. Followed by which, when we are talking about the objective, the main objective is to establish a strong and a stable mechanism, protect against the marketing of products or hazardous to life and property, inform about the quality, potency, and then we talk about the quantity factors. We also talk about the standard, purity, and other factors. establish consumer protection councils for protecting right and interest of consumers, assure whenever possible there's an authority of good or any other competitive prices. Now, these things are very, very important for all of us to understand. Why? Because without these fundamental understanding, without these fundamental factors coming into picture, one might not know why we should go to the consumer protection. We are not just going to raise a complaint. You should understand under which context, where is the problem? Is there a mistake in the advertisement? Is there a mistake in my understanding? Or is there a mistake in terms of quantity, standard, some procedures or numbers that are being misread by the consumer? So when you're trying to safeguard the consumer, one has to understand whether he has gone through the procedure. Is there been any kind of misguidance that has led to this confusion? You need to seek a reversal in terms of unfair practices, exploitation of consumer, protect the consumer by appointing the various authorities, lay down the penalties here and ensure that consumers' welfare would receive a considerable amount of appropriate money or any kind of benefits altogether. And you need to provide consumer education and justice to all kind of malpractices that have been going on across. So, the objective remains very, very clear to see that the consumer remains protected throughout in whatever cases, so that he is not being affected by any kind of unscrupulous activities that continues in terms of exploiting the consumer. Now, we also see that there are 6 rights for the consumer under this particular Act of 2019. The first one being the right of consumer being protected, the right of consumer being protected against any unfair practices. It applies to both goods and services, also in terms of standard, purity and price of goods. The right of the consumer to have access to variety of goods and services. He should not be denied, saying that only this much is available, only this variety is available. So you would need to have the right and access done, followed by the right to seek the redressal from the forum against unfair and restrictive practices, receive any adequate compensation in case if he is being affected by the seller, and receive consumer education. Wherever the consumer seeks that I need knowledge about this, he should be provided with this knowledge. So that is very important when we are talking about the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Now, what are the unfair trade practices? Manufacturing spurious good or providing defective services, not issuing cash memos or bill or for the services rendered, refusing to take back or withdraw the goods in case of refund, or disclosing the personal information of the consumer. All these things are considered to be 100% malpractice against the law. Followed by which the essential provisions of the consumer are, the Act establishes saying that consumer protection councils protect the rights of consumer both at the national level and also at the state level. Now, the Central Consumer Act, when you start looking into it, which means to say that the minister in charge of the Department of Consumer Affairs in the central government is the chairperson, and he can go ahead through any officials, he can assist the consumer and get the problem solved. The Central Council may meet whenever they are necessary and hold at least one meeting every year. The purpose of Central Council is to protect and promote the interest of the consumer. Followed by which the State Council, in this the minister in charge of the state will be responsible, and he needs to address the issues for the consumer. Any number of official, non-official can also be there. The central official may also appoint not less than 10 members for this purpose. Again, they can at least have 2 meetings a year to resolve any kind of problems. Now, the most important thing as we talk about this consumer protection is that the district consumer level, the collector of the district will be the appointed chairperson. Other members can also represent the council and be a part of the act to address the issues for the consumer. Now, enhanced protection, where we start seeing that district commission up to rupees up to 1 crore can come, state commission can come up to 10 crores, and national commission, anything that's where above 10 crores comes into picture. The new CPA, Consumer Protection Act of 2019, provides flexibility for the consumer to file complaints with the consumer commission located in the place of residence or in the work of the consumer. So this is very, very important. Why? Because you would see that the CPA tries to act and provide the consumer the best possibility. Conclusion, when we talk about it, this is legislation that offers the consumer a great variety of power to protect them against any kind of wrongdoings. The act enables the consumers to seek alternative dispute resolution. So any problem they can seek through this act, and the scope of e-filing the complaints also enables the process to be faster, so the consumer can file it right from his home. Now, furthermore, when you start looking into it, they have introduced new terms and terminologies through which you can protect it. The inclusion of this provision in this act is actually an enhancement of 1986, and this is of a paramount importance. Why? Because today when the consumer feels that he's cheated or he's been thrown back, he can go ahead and he can file the consumer complaint by himself. With this, I come to the end of this particular session. I hope and believe that all the facts and figures that we have spoken through this session would be of a great value to you, both in terms of theory as well as in the practical walk of life. In the upcoming session, we would be learning more about the insurance practices. But until then, stay tuned, stay blessed. Thank you once again for joining me today on this wonderful session.